Nothing is more priceless or worthy of preservation than the rich array of life our country has been blessed with. Richard Nixon. The time is the 1850s, a period of mass migration of immigrants to the American West, and a period of conflicting ideals in the U.S., as the country began to split into political parties. The threat of a civil war hung over the heads of the nation. Tensions are high all around, and it's just so that nobody notices the foundations of future disaster, slipping in, settling, and growing unstoppable. Ships filled with hundreds of immigrants pour into the Great Lakes, their eyes bright with the promise of a new life and a new world. A constant stream of boats in and out through international waters, bustling and bursting. But the people are not the issue, nor are the boats themselves. The real threat clings to the hulls of the boats, thrives in their rotting wood, and lurks in the waters they carry. Invasive species. An invasive species is any species who is not native to an environment and causes some harm or imbalance to the ecosystem it has been introduced into. They can decimate entire populations, spread at alarming speeds without any predators to stop them, and outcompete the specialized and native species. The 1850s was essentially the beginning of this conflict in America, due mostly to international boat travel bringing non-native animals and plants along for the ride. Today, invasive species are one of the largest threats facing our natural world, as they create a ripple effect of biodiversity loss, pollution, and damage to the economy. They can imbalance and essentially suck the life out of even the largest and seemingly most powerful ecosystems. And right now, they threaten one that we cannot afford to lose. They run 750 miles east to west, containing 84% of North America's surface freshwater, the land surrounding them housing 34 million people. Made up of 6 quadrillion gallons of water, enough to submerge the continental United States in 10 feet of water, 5 massive inland seas that house over 3,500 species of plants and animals. The Great Lakes. Since 14,000 years ago, these lakes have been a part of North America and have shaped our lives and our homes. One of the largest cities in America, Chicago, exists mainly because of them. They are sources of water, economic growth, and recreation. As written in 1899 by J.B. Mansfield in his book History of the Great Lakes, that sentiment of the human heart which experiences pleasure in the sublime and beautiful in nature can find in the waters of the Great Lakes and in their environment a wealth of enjoyment that is offered nowhere else on the globe.
So I think the Great Lakes are very special. They're a national and international treasure. They are the largest freshwater, surface freshwater ecosystem in the world.
However, all is not as it seems. Beneath the waves and the outward appearance of calm, battle rages between forces of nature. 180 different non-native species swarm the Great Lakes environment, crowding it and spreading like wildfire, throwing the stable balance of the lakes completely off. They diminish native wildlife populations, pose threats to our health, and hurtle the unique Great Lakes ecosystem into destruction. An example? Zebra mussels. These common and more widely known invaders arrived by boat in 1988, released unknowingly into Lake St. Clair, which connects Lakes Erie and Huron. And from there, disaster. The mussels quickly became a threat to the lakes, and by 1993 all 5 of them had come to house them. They have no predators, and because of this, they can choke out native mussels and gain control over the food sources full of plankton that other animals depend on, as well as habitable spots for a colony. And once one thing in the food chain goes wrong, the whole thing begins to collapse. Native mussels are now much harder to find, and in turn their predators starve, as they are not adapted to be able to eat zebra mussels. Their populations sink, and so on. As a report from the Redpath Museum in Quebec found, out of the original 12 or 13 distinct native lake trout populations in Lake Superior, only 2 or 3 remain. And not only do the invasive species impact the natural world, but the world above the water as well. The average annual cost for zebra mussel control to water treatment plants is about $480,000 to $540,000. They clog pipes and cover filters, posing threats to the safety of our drinking water. Not only that, but because they kill off native fish, they drastically hurt the fishing industry and therefore the lifestyle of many people. And all of this happens as an effect of a single species. The impacts of 180 can be and are devastating. Annually in the Great Lakes region, There is a $50 million reduced demand in tourism due to invasive species. In other words, invasive species are bad, very bad, and we cannot seem to find a compromise that will stop them. It is extremely difficult to completely eradicate a single species without harming the ecosystem around them, especially when the species happens to reside 1,333 feet underwater. Not to mention, it's costly. The only solution we seem to have so far is to stop them from entering in the first place. This does not stop us from trying, however. For example, in 1972, the Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau and President Richard Nixon signed the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement, which was created to focus efforts on stopping the pollution of the Great Lakes and to assure a safe and enjoyable environment to their inhabitants. It was amended twice, but its goal never changed.
The most recent Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement was revised in 2012, and that's the agreement that governs our work today. There's been a lot of work that's occurred over that time period, tackling very important issues at the time, like eutrophication, non-native species, and many of the same issues we're still dealing with today, which reflects how complex the challenges that we face are.
In 2002, the Great Lakes Legacy Act was passed, its goal to clean up polluted and hazardous spots of the lakes to keep their legacy alive for many generations. However, these laws and ideas are often met with resistance and reluctance to spend the tax money of America's citizens on nature, something that in the minds of many does not matter or influence our lives. But really, it is one of the most important things in our lives. We depend on the environment entirely, and the lakes have shaped our lives and our homes for so long. A writer in the Chicago Tribune, Stanley Tigerman, once said about the importance of Lake Michigan to the people that live around it, "If you don't have a lake, Chicago becomes a dumb city, a city that just expands like a blob equally in all directions until it just peters out eventually." But perhaps you're wondering how any of this could possibly affect you. I can tell you that in the short term and the long term, it will affect your entire lifestyle, even more so when you see that invasive species are not the only threat the lakes face. The largest of these? Climate change, a slowly growing threat that is creeping up on us, leaving us facing intense storms, heat spells, droughts, reduced biodiversity, the endangerment of hundreds of animal and plant species, sickness, and unsafe air and water. All of this affects you because it affects the environment. From all this, the economy will take a hit. According to the World Conservation Union, the value of all goods and services provided by ecosystems is estimated to amount to some $33 trillion per year. Our health will be endangered. We harvest an estimated 50,000 to 70,000 plant species for traditional and modern medicine worldwide, and cases of asthma are expected to jump up by 10% in urban areas such as New York City. It is becoming abundantly clear that something must be done, and soon. This is a piece of history in the making, whether good or bad. It is a turning point in our society, the fork in the road where we must decide if we wish to pursue environmental goals or continue on our current path. For both, the road ahead is too foggy to see, no matter the ending we hope for. And our decision does not only affect us, but many, many others. The U.S. is a nation made of immigrants. More than 40 million people living in America were born outside of the country, each one representing a connection to the rest of the world. For this reason, the United States is and has been a model for a large part of the rest of society. Every big decision America makes seems to be echoed across the globe, and that is precisely why it is so crucial what we choose to do about things like invasive species. Basically, every single inhabited spot on the planet is somehow affected by environmental issues, climate change especially. So still, the question stands: what are we going to do?